combination. It's the prayer, it's the medication, it's all the things you're doing. But number one thing is vaccination. People are not taking it as seriously, or they think they have time. I've read many stories of folks saying, I planned on getting vaccinated, but in the process of planning to get vaccinated, they got COVID. And many of whom, I mean, I've seen cases where it's been the husband and the wife who both passed, leaving behind children, leaving behind loved ones because they had planned to get vaccinated, thought they had time to get vaccinated, but they didn't do it.
Right.
And so now you got so many folks where they're trying to plan funerals and things of the nature where they thought they had more time. They thought they had, I'm going to do my research. And what is this research that folks keep swearing they're doing? It's not as if they're going into some laboratory. A lot of times what I am hearing and some of the things I've seen is these conspiracy theories. And, I can just take, this is one, I can just take hydrochloroquine, or what is that? That horse medicine?
Yes, hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin.
Okay. What is that? Talk about that.
Well, there are two different things. Hydroxychloroquine is something that President Trump initially was very much supportive of when there were some early studies that showed that it might be helpful in terms of decreasing viral load in patients who contracted COVID-19. However, once they did the research thoroughly and did it properly with double-blind studies and those kind of things, hydroxychloroquine shows no benefit in terms of either prevention or treatment of COVID-19. And indeed, the opposite is what they found to be true. Hydroxychloroquine, if not prescribed and taken properly, has significant risk of causing problems with cardiac rhythm disturbances and sudden cardiac death, as well as kidney problems in those who take it. So it not only does not provide benefit, but there's significant risk associated with its use. Ivermectin is actually a medication that's out there for animals. It's an antiparasitic that we use for horses and cows and large animals to deworm them when they contract worms in their gastrointestinal system. It has absolutely nothing to do with viral management. It has nothing to do with viral prevention. It has nothing to do with viral treatment, to the point where every healthcare professional who is in any position of accountability is downplaying and encouraging people not to fall into the hype of ivermectin. Because just like what I explained with hydroxychloroquine, not only is there no evidence that it's effective in the treatment of COVID-19, there are significant risks to you taking a animal product and trying to use it on you personally. The way that they formulate this ivermectin, because it's for large animals, is very concentrated. And you can think that you're taking a smaller amount and you're getting a whole lot more than you think you're going to get. And you can end up with liver failure, you can end up with kidney failure, you can end up with a metabolic acidosis. It can cause a lot of problems with you and it can kill you. Right. Not to mention the fact that it's not going to help you with your COVID-19. Now, there's a lot of anecdotal stuff out there where you hear people saying that they have friends or they've had family members, they've had cousins who contracted COVID-19 and then went to a homeopathic physician or to someone else, and they gave them some hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin and they got better. Well, I'm here to tell you that the chances are if they had taken nothing at all, they probably would have gotten better anyway. It was not the ivermectin, nor was it the hydroxychloroquine that got them better. It was just the fact that they were in that percentage of people who developed mild illness. And the majority of people who contract COVID-19 will have mild illness. However, there's that minority of people, and we no longer have a good, clear delineation of who's who now, who will progress to very serious illness and death. And those are the people who we're trying to protect. Those are the people that we're trying to get to. Even if you, again, Danita, have contracted COVID-19 and you had mild illness, you have a responsibility to people around you to try and keep them from being in that percentage of people who will progress to more serious illness and possibly cause death in folks who may be very close to you. Right. By getting yourself protected, vaccinated, and practicing proper mitigation, to help get this thing back in the box so that we can go back to a life that we're all more used to.
Absolutely.
And I got season tickets to Alabama football games, and I got to make a decision every Saturday
I
whether I'm
hear
going to go
you.
into that stadium or
Well,
not.
I know you want their Tide to roll, but you know we Clemson Tigers over here. You know, so really, truthfully, the vaccine is really about love.
Yes.
Love for yourself, of course, because you want to be here for your family and for your friends and to live the life, but also love for your fellow man.
There you go.
Because just because I'm strong enough and healthy enough and I can fight it off myself and I maybe have minor symptoms like it's a cold,
Yeah.
you know, if I'm around somebody else whose system is not as strong as mine, and because of me, they get it, and they've got all these other pre-existing conditions, they might not be able to fight it off
That is correct.
like I could.
That is correct.
And so I think so many folks just are not getting that piece.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's my freedom, it's my personal choice. It is. But think about those that you love and think about, you know, I know right now you can vaccinate 12 and older, but think about, I've been seeing stories now about children.
Absolutely.
Children getting it.
Absolutely.
You know, toddlers and babies and middle schoolers and so getting it. And so I don't know what it's going to take, but one thing I do know is that I want to bring it back home to the African American community.
Yes.
You're a black man.
Yes.
You've gone to school. You studied. You're a man of God, anointed. What is it going to take within our communities for us to turn this tide? I mean, I know we always point back to Tuskegee. Oh, there's a whole history of mistrust within the African American community and the government and the medical community and so forth. But I'm looking at you, you know, because man of God, black man, been my doctor for well over a decade now. I can talk to you. I can ask questions. You'll break it down because sometimes you throw out those words. I'm like, what you say, doc? And you'll break it down in layman's terms. Is it that we need to encourage more of our folks to have that type of rapport? Make sure they got a doctor. What is it going to take for us to turn the tide in the African American community?
I think that's exactly why I'm here now, and that's why I started this whole YouTube channel. Is because, you know, the Lord revealed to me a long time ago that my role was to serve as a bridge. You know, we have faith for healing. We have faith for deliverance from things that are leading us down a path away from healing and health and wholeness. But what we are missing in many cases is a bridge to help protect us while we're building our faith to receive that healing, while we're building our faith and operating in a sense of sanctification to the point where the full manifestation of God's perfect will for our life can happen. As a physician who is also a man of faith, it was revealed to me that I'm to be a bridge to take people from where they are to where it is that God has called them to be, where there can be full manifestation, and try and help prevent them from falling into the traps that are out there laid by the enemy.
That's right.
That can take us out of here before there's full manifestation of God's purpose for our life of being here.
That's right.
I feel now that I'm called to be the same bridge between our community, people who look like me and you, who have this deep-seated mistrust of the medical community and people who are in a position of, I guess, authority, for lack of a better way of putting it, so that we can bridge that gap, so that we can bring people back into a situation where they can understand that we're not trying to hurt them.
That's right.
I'm not trying to hurt anybody, and that's kind of why I opened up the way that I opened up earlier, is that my goal is to try and help you to stay as healthy and safe and whole as long as possible, to the greatest degree that's in my power as a medical professional. You know, I want to be able to get people to a point where they can start to trust again, whether it's because it comes from somebody who looks like me and you,
That's right,
or whether it comes from someone who knows the Word of God and tries to live the Word of God, and seeks His direction, prays before I touch people every morning, and thanks Him for the opportunity to do so every evening. You know, whether it's because of my faith or whether it's because of my ethnicity or whether it's because of my background, you know, because I ain't always been no doctor.
Okay.
You
I know.
know,
I
I
understand
done
that.
came up around the way.
That's right.
I know what it is to feel like, you know, people telling you what to do and I ain't going to do that. You know, that's the man trying to tell me what to do.
Right.
I've been through all that, you know, and that's not where I'm coming from. I'm coming from what I know that I know that I know is going to help us. We're dying 3.5 times more than the general population. And we are the lowest immunized community in this nation.
Wow.
So we're setting ourselves up.
We are, because one thing I do know to be true is within our community, we're dealing with a higher prevalence of obesity, high blood pressure. What else? Tell us those things. And so all those things compounded, and you add COVID on top of it, then it's taking us out.
Absolutely. Diabetes and obesity related illnesses, cancers, certain autoimmune diseases, sarcoid disease, lupus, all of those things occur at a higher rate in the African American community than they do in the general population. And, you know, part of what the goal of this YouTube channel is to integrate some of the preventive measures, not only against COVID, but also against ongoing chronic illnesses
That's
or
right.
prevention as well as treatment of ongoing chronic illnesses so that we can be healthier overall. Because this ain't going to be the last pandemic we
It's
face.
not.
This is
No.
not going to be the last time that, you know, we're going to have to be as strong and as healthy as we possibly can in order that we'll be able to, again, stick around here long enough to fulfill God's will for our lives.
That's right.
So, yeah. So what am I doing? I'm going to use myself as an example again. My wife is my greatest counselor when it comes to me staying on top of myself with respect to my diet,
Amen.
making sure that I'm eating the proper types of foods, making sure that I'm eating more live foods than dead foods.
Thank you.
Making sure I'm getting a proper amount of nutrients, taking my vitamins, drinking enough water, getting enough rest, making sure that I'm getting some exercise in to make sure that my body is continuing to move forward. The greatest thing that you can do to build your immune system is exercise. I mean, that goes 100 times further than taking zinc or vitamin D or a bunch of other different things that people are now doing because it's in vogue to try and boost their immune system. Exercise, drinking plenty of water, and getting enough sleep are going to take you a lot farther in terms of prevention of disease than a lot of this other stuff that, you know, I see on social media, and I have people come to my office telling me they're doing to try and help prevent themselves from getting sick. You know, he gave us all the tools.
He gave us the tools.
Now we need to use the wisdom to utilize those tools.
We need to eat as close to the Garden of Eden as possible. So your point about live foods, you know, that's important.
Absolutely.
We're eating too much fried stuff.
Yeah.
We're eating too much stuff, sugary stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so this is the thing I've heard people say. Well, they're inflating COVID rates anyway because he didn't really die of that. He died of his high blood pressure. Well, guess what? He was living with his high blood pressure because he was taking his medication. What triggered and messed up his high blood pressure was when he got that COVID, and it went on and did the rest of the job. See, one thing people say, well, it's not COVID, it's all these other things. And that may be true, but all those pre-existing conditions, and you add COVID on top of it, it takes you out that much quicker.
Correct. And I think that the case needs to be made that in most cases, well, in the majority of cases that I see, in patients who do have comorbid medical conditions, whether it's high blood pressure, diabetes, autoimmune disorders, it's the people who are not doing what you just said, who are not following the recommendations, they're not keeping their blood pressure under control, they're not monitoring their sugar, they're not keeping their sugar under control, and in some cases, they don't even know they have these comorbid medical conditions, and then COVID strikes.
Right.
And then COVID comes into an environment where it can basically run roughshod over your whole body because your body is ill prepared to defend itself against what's happening. Right. You know, I'm going to use the warfare analogy again. If you take a battalion of soldiers and you don't feed them, right? You don't give them nothing. You don't give them any rest. You're not exercising them. You're not drilling them. You're not preparing them for the battle, and then you throw them into battle, they will be overwhelmed very quickly.
Right.
overwhelmed very
Excellent
quickly.
example.
The same thing is true when it comes to facing infection, not just COVID-19, any infectious process. It could be pneumococcal pneumonia, it could be the flu, it could be any number of different things. If your body is ill equipped to fight back, then it doesn't take much to overcome you once you're faced with an enemy that is designed to destroy you. And
Yeah.
that's what this thing is designed to do. It's to take you out, man. It wants to use your body as a vessel to replicate itself. It don't care nothing about what happens to you once it's done replicating itself, because once you're dead, it's going to look for somebody else
Something
to
else.
infect.
Gotcha. So I heard you mention in that sequence of things, you talked about the flu and so on and so forth. Can you or should you get, if you've not gotten the influenza vaccine and the shingles vaccine and all those other vaccines, should you get those, you know, shortly thereafter, before, etc.? Speak to, because I know there's several people out there that have not gotten those vaccines.
Correct.
So can we talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, it's very important that you have your vaccines up to date, because COVID-19 is not the only thing that potentially you can be affected by.
Right.
Those of us who are from my generation, I'll speak for myself again,
I'm right here with you.
we were pre chickenpox vaccine. Most of us caught the chickenpox when we were kids. In fact, our parents encouraged us to catch it once one of the kids got it. The
That's
rest
right.
of us had
All
to
of them
stay in
get
the
it.
same room. We all got it at the same time. Shingles lives inside of us. That virus that gave us chickenpox never goes away. It hides out in your nerve roots, and later on in life, as your immune system declines, as you get older, it can reactivate and go along nerve roots and cause shingles.
Right.
The vaccine helps prevent that reactivation of the virus. It's a very painful, very, very, very painful malady to get, and it can be prevented. The flu, once again, influenza, another airborne virus that can cause upper respiratory symptoms. Our system is already overwhelmed with the surge of COVID-19 and the Delta variant. If we do not get people immunized against flu, and we have a bad flu season this year, there are a lot of people who are going to die without ever getting to the hospital, because there's not going to be a hospital for them to go to.
Right.
Unfortunately, what we're seeing now in many cases, and it may refer back to what you were saying about, people dying from things other than COVID, even though they had COVID, is that because our system is so overwhelmed by COVID-19 cases, there are no ICU beds and no specialty care hospitals that have the capacity to take care of patients who have potentially lethal problems that aren't related to COVID-19. I had a patient die in our emergency room just this past week who was septic from something other than COVID-19, and we could not find a single hospital to transfer her to
Wow.
that had the specialists and had the capacity to take care of that degree of illness. And she succumbed to it right there in the emergency department because of the amount of COVID cases that are present. You add to that a bad flu spike this winter, and things are going to get really bad. People with COVID won't be able to get the care they need. People with the flu won't be able to get the care they need. And people who have unrelated illnesses who still require hospital level care will not have the care that they need. So it becomes a downward spiral.
That's right.
It becomes a downward spiral. So again, the recommendation and what I encourage is that you get vaccinated to try and keep yourself as healthy as you can against things not just that say COVID-19 on them, but also against other known infectious diseases that can cause you to become sick and require hospital level care. That includes the flu. Now, the timing, if you go ahead and get your COVID-19 vaccine, I recommend that you wait about 2 weeks after or before you get that COVID-19 vaccine, before you get another vaccine. They used to say wait a month. Now they're saying you may not have to wait at all. But if you're concerned, the reason why you've waited so long to get vaccinated is that you're concerned about the side effects, I would recommend that you space it out by a couple of weeks so that you don't get the compounded side effects of both a flu shot and a COVID shot at the same time.
Gotcha.
Okay? Side effects are your friend when it comes to vaccination. Let me reiterate that. The side effects indicate the degree of antibody response that you have gotten from the vaccine that you just received. If you get no side effects, then your antibody response might not be vigorous enough to really provide you any protection.
Wow.
Mhm.
Okay. So I don't know if I asked this, I can't remember, but if I've gotten COVID already,
Mhm.
I haven't, praise the Lord, but if I've gotten COVID already,
Mhm.
should I get the vaccine? And if so, how soon can I get the vaccine if I already had COVID?
Right. If you've had COVID-19, the recommendation is that you wait a minimum of 30 days
30 days.
after you've completed your quarantine period before you receive the COVID-19 vaccine. And the reason for that, again, is really about trying to mitigate the amount of side effects that you get from the vaccination. Because if you've already had the virus, you're going to have a relatively brisk antibody response already in place. And then you elicit a secondary antibody response, you're going to really feel it
Gotcha.
unless you give it a little bit of time for that antibody response from the initial infection to wane a little bit. And that's anywhere from 1 to 3 months, depending on what your personal situation is. People who have underlying illnesses, whose immune system is not as robust, those people should get it sooner, as opposed to those who have a very strong and robust immune system. They may want to wait a little bit later because it'll take longer for their immune response to wane.
Very good.
Mhm.
Wow. All I am praying for is that there is some understanding that people are getting from listening to this, that they are opening their ears to truly hear. They're listening to a man of God who also is scientific, a medical doctor, and understanding that there's a direct correlation in our health of taking the vaccine so we can remain as healthy as possible.
Amen.
I just, I don't know. It's been devastating that I've had so many family and friends and that have been impacted by this.
Yes.
Um, some are right now just fighting for their lives, and the prayer is they'll make it through. And I guess we need to look at those as cautionary tales of what could happen. Some instances, some of them, have been vaccinated,
Mhm.
but then there are other instances where the large majority have not been vaccinated. So that should tell us something. We should learn that lesson that, if we're still out here and we can do it, go get a vaccine. And there
Absolutely.
are places all around where they're offering the vaccine, and
Absolutely.
it's free.
Absolutely. For a large part of my career and even during my education, one of the things that was always discussed as a barrier to members of the African American community from getting the type of treatment and the type of prevention that was available is lack of access. Well, that no longer is the
We got
case.
access.
Access is everywhere. If there's a drugstore in your neighborhood, you can get vaccinated. If there is, in many cases, even a church in your neighborhood,
Right?
you can get vaccinated because we're doing vaccines at churches as well. And matter of fact, one of the things that we're looking at doing moving forward is putting together a coalition, if you will, of healthcare professionals and barbers for access to barbershops,
Yes.
pastors for access to churches, particularly in the African American community, once again to try and help form that bridge between the healthcare system and the systems that we access most frequently in our own communities. Okay, so that you can see that the people who you trust
That's right.
and have trusted in some cases for generations, your barbers, your pastors, your church friends, um, believe that what we're telling them and telling you is the truth. We're
Amen.
not trying to harm you. We're trying to help keep you safe and keep the people that you love safe from you.
So if someone wants to be a part of that coalition, if you got the stylist or the barber or the pastor that wants to be a part of that coalition, how can they get in contact with you?
There's a couple ways to do it. One, you can message me through my YouTube channel. It's called Getting Understanding with Dr. Daryl Ellis. You can send messages to me that way and I can reach back out to you. Or there is a way that you can contact me through my Facebook page. You can get on my Facebook page and it's just my name. I'm still waiting to develop a
Yes,
separate
we're going to
Facebook
be
page.
developing that as very soon.
Yeah. Where specific things pertaining to this can be directed to me. But you can get through to my Facebook page and it's just my name, Daryl Ellis. And I'm looking forward to hearing from some people because this is something, in my preparation for today's video, I was doing some reading and I saw that they had an initiative like this through Loma Linda University in California, where they formed a coalition like this, and they saw an exponential increase in the percentage of vaccinated individuals in the African American community there in that Southern California community, based upon this coalition and forming that bridge from the healthcare community to the African American community and other minority communities. So I'm looking forward to us being able to get that done because, again, I'm here for a purpose.
Amen.
And that purpose is not to cause anybody any harm, but to let you know what I know will be in your best interest.
Well, all I can say is he has been my doctor for well over a decade. I trust him implicitly, explicitly, because he has never steered me wrong. I know that when I come into his office, I'm going to get a good word, a good prayer, a good prescription, some good guidance, some advice. He gave me a good word here. He said, we got to exercise more. I know I got to do that. I got to get my sleep on. I got to work on that as well, and drinking a lot more water. So we got to make sure we're protecting these vessels. God has given them to us for a purpose, and we don't want that purpose to be extinguished before we can fulfill it because COVID or any of these other things have taken us out. But right now, our emphasis is on COVID. So, we got to get the understanding. And I just thank you for allowing me to come and have this conversation because I hear all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, I need to sit down with the man that knows, that can help put it in layman's terms and get the word out to folks. So I thank you for letting me come today.
Amen. Thank you for coming, sis. I tell you, this was great. I really enjoyed this. And like Danita said, I hope that someone got something from this that will help them making a well-informed decision about what's going to be best for them, best for their loved ones. Again, the door is open. I want to hear from you. If there are additional questions or concerns that you have about doing what it is that we're talking about here to help protect yourself, reach out to us. You have my access points through YouTube as well as through Facebook. I don't have a Twitter account, but that's something else that I'm going to be working on. I've never tweeted, but I understand that that's a way to be able to reach people as well and have people be able to reach you as well. I want us to be able to be engaged so that we can start moving in the same direction, so that we can start rowing the boat in the same direction, knowing that that direction is a good one. It's one that will lead to a greater level of health. It will lead to a greater longevity for ourselves as well as the people who we love and care for the most and for our community. We can't be effective if we're not healthy. God bless you. Don't forget to hit like and hit subscribe so that you can get notifications about future videos as we continue to work toward expanding beyond just COVID-19 and talking about the things that we can do to be able to be sure that we are the healthiest, best forms of ourselves so that we can do what it is that we've been purposed to do here on earth. It's in Jesus' name I say, I'll see you next time.